I want to tell you about a morning ritual. 18 months. Every single day without exception. My husband woke up before me. He ground the beans himself. He heated the milk to exactly the right temperature. He brought the cup to my nightstand before I opened my eyes. And he kissed my forehead. And he said, "Good morning, my love." Every single morning. For 18 months. I told my friends about it constantly. I said, "He makes my coffee every morning without fail." I said, "That is how I know he loves me." I was right about the coffee. I was wrong about everything else. My name is Clara Whitfield. I am 31 years old. And for the past 4 months, I have been getting weaker. Not dramatically weaker. Not the kind of weakness that sends you straight to the emergency room. The slow kind. The kind you explain away. I am tired because work is stressful. I am dizzy because I skipped lunch. My hands are shaking because I did not sleep well. My heart is racing because I had too much caffeine. I went to my doctor in month 2. Blood test came back normal. She said I was probably overworked. She said to take more breaks. I went back in month 3. More tests. Everything normal. She referred me to a specialist. The specialist ran a full panel. Normal. He said it was possibly anxiety. He said stress manifests physically in ways that do not always show up in standard tests. He said to consider therapy. I nodded. I went home. My husband Marcus was waiting in the kitchen. He looked at me with concern. He said, "What did the specialist say?" I told him. He shook his head. He said, "These doctors are useless." He said, "You need someone who will actually listen to you." He said, "Let me make you something to eat." He was so caring, so attentive, so present. I thought I was lucky. I thought most women would give anything to have a husband like Marcus. I had no idea. Let me tell you about the coffee ritual properly. Because you need to understand what it meant to me. Marcus started it 3 months into our marriage. He said he read that couples who have morning rituals together have stronger bonds. He said he wanted us to have something that was just ours. He woke up at 6:15 every morning. I woke up at 7. By the time I opened my eyes, the cup was on my nightstand. Still hot. Always the perfect temperature. He used a specific blend he ordered online. He said he had found it on a specialty coffee forum. He said it was the smoothest roast available. He said only a small number of suppliers carried it. He ordered it himself every month. He would not let me order it. He said, "Let me handle it." He said, "This is my thing for you." I thought it was the most romantic thing I had ever heard. My friends agreed. My colleague Dana said, "Marcus sounds like a dream." She said, "My husband cannot even remember to buy milk." I smiled. I said, "I know. I am very lucky." Dana looked at me for a moment. She said, "You do not look well though, Clara." She said, "You have looked pale for weeks." I said, "I am just tired." She said, "It is more than tired." She said it quietly. Like she was thinking something she was not ready to say out loud. I did not ask her what she meant. I wish I had asked sooner. Dana had been my colleague for 3 years. She worked in the office across from mine. We had lunch together twice a week. What I did not know about Dana until 4 months into my illness was that she had spent 12 years as a registered nurse before changing careers. She had left nursing after a case that stayed with her. A patient whose symptoms matched mine exactly. Fatigue, dizziness, heart palpitations, trembling hands, normal test results, progressive weakness over several months. That patient had been poisoned by her husband. Slowly, deliberately. Over the course of almost a year, Dana had been the nurse on duty the night that woman was brought in unconscious. She had watched the investigation unfold from the periphery. She had never forgotten the symptom pattern. When she started seeing it in me, she did not say anything immediately. She watched. She waited. She paid attention. She noticed that my worst days were Mondays. She noticed I seemed slightly better on Friday afternoons. She noticed that on the days I worked from home, I seemed to deteriorate faster. She said nothing for 2 weeks. She was building a picture. She was making sure she was right before she said something that could not be unsaid. On a Tuesday morning in November, I brought my travel mug to work. Marcus had made my coffee as usual. I had been running late. I had not finished it at home. I brought it with me in the car. I set it on my desk when I arrived. I got pulled into a meeting immediately. I was in that meeting for 2 hours. When I came back to my desk, the travel mug was gone. I assumed the cleaning staff had taken it. I went to Dana's office to ask if she had seen it. She was sitting at her desk. She looked up when I walked in. She said, "I have it." I said, "Oh, why do you have it?" She looked at me for a long moment. She said, "Clara, I need to tell you something." She said, "And I need you to stay very calm when I tell you." I sat down in the chair across from her desk. She said, "I took your travel mug this morning." She said, "I took a sample of the coffee inside it." She said, "I sent it to a private laboratory." I stared at her. I said, "Why would you do that?" She said, "Because I have been watching you for 2 months." She said, "And what I am seeing in you I have seen once before." She said, "In a patient whose husband was poisoning her through her food." The room felt very still. I said, "Dana." She said, "I know how this sounds." She said, "I know you love Marcus." She said, "I know he seems like a wonderful husband." She said, "But Clara, I need you to trust me right now." She said, "The results will be back in 48 hours. She said, "Until then, I need you to act completely normally at home." She said, "Do not change anything." She said, "Drink the coffee tomorrow morning." I looked at her. I said, "You want me to drink it?" She said, "I need him to not suspect anything." She said, "I will be outside your building at 7:15 tomorrow morning." She said, "Bring the travel mug out as normal." She said, "I will swap it before you get to your car." She said, "You will have an empty mug and I will have the sample." I sat in that chair for a long time. I thought about Marcus waking up at 6:15, grinding the beans himself, heating the milk to exactly the right temperature, saying, "Good morning, my love." I said, "Okay." I drove home that evening. Marcus was making dinner. He smiled when I walked in. He said, "How was your day?" I said, "Long." "Good, though." He handed me a glass of water. He said, "You look tired." He said, "Sit down. Let me finish this." I sat at the kitchen table and watched him cook. I watched his hands, the same hands that ground the coffee beans every morning, the same hands that brought the cup to my nightstand, the same hands that kissed my forehead and said, "Good morning, my love." I thought about Dana's face when she said, "I have seen this before." I thought about the word poisoning. I thought about 18 months of mornings. I said, "Marcus, where do you order the coffee from again?" He did not turn around immediately. Just a half-second pause. So brief I almost missed it. He said, "Why do you ask?" I said, "I was thinking of ordering some for my mom. She would love it." He turned around. He smiled. He said, "I will order extra next time and you can give her a bag." He said, "It is not easy to find. Let me handle it." He turned back to the stove. I looked at my hands on the kitchen table. They were trembling slightly. Not from weakness this time. From something else entirely. Donna called me at my office at 2:17 in the afternoon. 46 hours after she had taken the sample. I closed my office door before I answered. She said, "Clara." I said, "Tell me." She said, "Thallium." I said, "What is thallium?" She said, "It is a heavy metal." She said, "It is odorless, colorless, tasteless." She said, "It was used as a poison in murder cases throughout the 20th century." She said, "It causes progressive weakness, fatigue, hair loss, neurological damage, cardiac complications." She said, "It matches every symptom you have had for 4 months." She said, "Clara, it was in your coffee." I sat in my office chair. I did not speak. She said, "I have already called the police." I said, "What?" She said, "I called them before I called you." She said, "I did not want you to talk me out of it." She said, "They are already pulling Marcus's online purchase history." She said, "They are applying for a warrant for your home." She said, "Clara, a detective will call you within the hour." She said, "You need to go somewhere safe before you go home tonight." She said, "Do not go home." I said, "Dana." She said, "I know." She said, "I am so sorry." She said, "I am so sorry it took me as long as it did." The detective's name was Sergeant Reeves. She called me at 3:45. She was direct and calm. She said they had already found 17 orders of thallium sulfate placed under a supplier account registered to Marcus over the past 2 years. 17 orders? Over 2 years. She said the first order was placed 4 months before our wedding. He had been planning it before we were married. Before the ring. Before the ceremony. Before he put his hands on my face and said, "I will love you for the rest of my life." He was already planning it. Sergeant Reeves said, "Mrs. Whitfield, I need to ask you something." She said, "Do you know the value of your life insurance policy?" I said, $3 million. She said, "And do you know when Marcus took that policy out?" I said, 8 months into our marriage. She said, "We found financial records this afternoon." She said, "Marcus has gambling debts totaling $412,000. She said, "He has been receiving threatening communications from creditors for 14 months. She said, "The policy payout would have cleared everything and left him with significant remaining funds." I sat in my car in the office parking lot. I thought about the coffee on my nightstand every morning. Still hot. Always the perfect temperature. "Good morning, my love." I said, "What happens now?" She said, "We need you to go to your sister's house tonight." She said, "Do not contact Marcus." She said, "Do not go home." She said, "We will handle everything from here." Marcus was arrested at our house at 6:47 that evening. I know the exact time because Sergeant Reeves texted me when it happened. I was sitting in my sister's kitchen drinking tea I had made myself. My sister did not know what to say. She kept refilling my cup. She kept sitting down and standing up again. I sat very still. I thought about 18 months of mornings. I thought about every time I had said thank you for the coffee. I thought about every time he had smiled and said, "Of course. Of course." Like it was nothing. Like it was just love. Like it was just what you do for someone you love. My phone buzzed. "Sergeant Reeves. He is in custody." 3 words. I read them 4 times. My sister asked, "What does it say?" I put the phone face down on the table. I said, "It is over." The investigation took 3 months. The evidence was overwhelming. 17 purchases of thallium sulfate. Bank records showing the gambling debts and creditor threats. The insurance policy. A search of his car revealed a notebook. In the notebook were dates and observations. Symptom progression notes, written in his handwriting. Week 6. Fatigue increasing as expected. Week 11. Dizziness consistent. No medical diagnosis yet. Week 18. Weakness progressing on schedule. On schedule. He had a schedule. He had been monitoring my decline the way you monitor a project at work. Clinically, methodically. Without emotion, the prosecution presented the notebook at trial. The jury looked at it in complete silence. His lawyer argued the notebook was personal health journaling. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty. Attempted murder in the first degree. 22 years. No parole for 14. I sat in the courtroom and watched them lead him away. He did not look at me. I started treatment for thallium poisoning the week after the arrest. It takes time to clear from the body. Months of chelation therapy, gradual recovery. Some days better than others. But moving forward, always moving forward, I sold the house 6 months after the trial. I could not keep it. Too many mornings in that house. Too many cups on that nightstand. I moved to a smaller apartment in a different part of the city. I repainted every wall myself. I bought a coffee machine I operate myself. I grind the beans myself. I heat the milk myself. Every morning, by myself. And I drink it standing at my kitchen window looking at the street below. And it is the best coffee I have ever had in my life. Not because it tastes better. Because I made it. And I know exactly what is in it. And nobody woke up before me to prepare it. And nobody kissed my forehead. And nobody said good morning, my love. And I am completely safe. Dana retired from nursing 12 years before we met. She changed careers because a patient's case stayed with her too long. She carried that case into a new profession. Into a different building. Into the office across from mine. And one Tuesday morning she took my travel mug off my desk and saved my life with it. Some people come into your life, and you do not understand why until the moment you need them most. And then you understand completely. If this story reached you today, I want you to know something. Pay attention to the people who pay attention to you, not the ones who perform love loudly, the ones who watch quietly, the ones who notice when something is wrong before you notice it yourself. Those people are the ones worth keeping. And sometimes they are sitting in the office across from yours, waiting for the right moment to take your coffee cup and send it to a laboratory and call the police before they call you. Because they already know you would try to talk them out of it. If this story moved you, subscribe to Covert Justice. Every week we bring you true stories of survival, betrayal, and the kind of quiet human strength that never makes headlines, but absolutely should. Hit subscribe. Turn on notifications. You being here matters. And so does every single story we tell.